A while back in a video, I mentioned how I bought a bike off Craigslist for $25. It's actually from, I think, the 70s, and I bought it from someone for $25. This is that bike now. I completely rebuilt the entire thing from the ground up. Today I'm gonna go through and tell you guys why I rebuilt this bike and how much it actually cost me, because it was a heck of a lot more than the original $25. It's also way too hot outside. I gotta put my hair up. For some reason, I decided to film on a day where it's like 86 degrees outside, so I gotta put my hair up. So this bike has been a passion project of mine. I really wanted to learn how bikes work and how to actually build my own. I thought they were super cool and I wanted to figure out how everything worked, so I figured I would buy a very cheap bike off of Craigslist and rebuild it the way I want it to be. So I tore the entire bark apart, So I tore every piece off the bike and took it down to literally just the frame. But it was cool to take everything apart. Like, it was sweet to see all the old parts and even clean everything and just make them brand new and shiny. It was very satisfying to take something that was like completely covered in grease and rust and grime and filth from all the years that the bike probably just sat somewhere and wasn't even used. Things like the hubs for the wheels. It's very satisfying to take something like that barely spins, it just feels grindy and sandy and disgusting, to take it apart, put it back together, re-grease it and everything, and now it works so smoothly. It's very satisfying and it feels very good to do. And you guys might remember in some other videos, I was actually stripping the paint off the bike and removing all the old red, chipped, rusty paint off the whole thing. And I definitely learned that stripping paint off stuff takes a long time. It's not very easy. I know that like paint stripper used to be much more effective back in the day, but it was probably, they removed some chemicals because whatever was in it was probably killing us. So I guess it's a good thing, but it definitely was not easy to get all the old paint off the bike. And as for the new paint that's on the bike, because it's green, like it's a completely different color, it doesn't even look like the same bike. I actually took this bike into a place very close to where I live to get it powder coated, which if you guys don't know what powder coating is, it's a very durable form of painting. It's like literally like melted onto the bike, I'm pretty sure, something like that, but it's very, very durable. I chose that green color. I really, really like that color. And then after the powder coating, I started putting everything back together. So as for rebuilding the bike, I definitely wanted to stay within like a decent budget. I didn't want to buy all completely new parts because I knew that would add up very quickly. And I also, this is my first ever bike build, so I wasn't going to go all out on my first ever one. So I did reuse a handful of old parts, things like the tire rims, the hubs, the brake calipers, the freewheel, even the original bottom bracket is still inside the bike. And then as for the things that I thought needed to be updated, I bought a lot of those pieces new. Things like the crankset, rear derailleur, brake levers, brake pads, cables and cable routing, pedals, tires, spokes, saddle, and maybe just like a month ago, I got new handlebars, a new stem adapter, and a new stem. I also had to buy a handful of bike-specific tools because you can't just work on bikes with your everyday tools. There are a lot of very specialty things that you need to take apart a bike and put it back together. It's probably gonna be a minimum of like $200 to get an entirely new wheel. So I figured I would save a lot of money and keep the originals and just get some new spokes and some new actual tires. What I didn't know was how complicated it actually is to rebuild a wheel. It took me many attempts to rebuild these things. It's not as simple as just buying some spokes and putting it together. There is literally math and precision measurements in order to get the spoke lengths right that could be different on either side of the wheel to get them together properly. That was a learning experience on its own. I actually bought like 6 different boxes of spokes because I kept on getting it wrong. That might have been the hardest part, was literally just putting the wheels back together. And there's a lot of different things on this bike that are just kind of outdated. The dimensions on different pieces aren't up to the current standards, and it makes some parts kind of hard to find and very limited. So like, for example, this seat tube right here, the diameter of the seat tube is 26.4 millimeters, which might not sound like much, but all the seat tubes these days are like 25 or 27 or just like different diameters, so they won't fit this bike. So when I was looking for a new seat tube for this bike, it was kind of hard to come by, and when I did actually find something, it was very limited in what I could buy. But putting this entire thing back together was a ton of fun. It was so much fun seeing this thing slowly become a bike again. And once I had all of the pieces, I could pretty much put the entire thing together in basically over one weekend. But man, was that definitely a learning experience. Because this was my first time doing this, I had to remember how the things go back together in a certain order. Like, it was kind of like putting a puzzle back together. And I had to go a lot off memory, like how things looked on the bike. And also, thankfully, I took a lot of pictures of how the bike looked before I took it apart, so I could use that as a reference when putting all of the old pieces back on the bike. And once I got the entire thing together, it was awesome. It worked, and it was essentially a brand new bike. Like, the frame is still the same, but the frame's an entirely different color. Like, it doesn't even look like the same thing. There's a ton of new parts and pieces on this guy, and I was able to make it my own bike. It was such a cool experience making this thing ride again. I essentially took a frame and put a bunch of random pieces on it to make it a working bike. And that was very rewarding. But that's not to say that everything worked perfectly. Like, for example, this right here is what's called the front derailleur. I almost broke it one time. Like, I was biking and it wasn't screwed on tight enough, and it completely shifted, and it kind of ruined my bike ride. I was actually very angry after that because I didn't have any place to repair it when I was out on this trail. So I had to go walk my bike back like a mile to my car just to give up on the ride because it wasn't working. Now I have the front derailleur completely figured out, and it works just fine. I've never had any issues, but I do still struggle with this back wheel. If you look fairly closely, you can see that the wheel is to the left more, and it's not centered between the caliper or the frame, and I can't figure it out. I don't know why. I have been struggling with this issue since I built the bike. I can't figure it out. And I think I'm just gonna need to pay someone to do it for me because I can't figure it out. I've looked up everything. I've gone to Reddit, books, YouTube, websites. I don't know. And it's like fairly dangerous because the rear brakes don't work very well. I kind of have to rely on the front brakes more, which you don't really want to. But I mean, it still stops. I've been fine. It's just one issue that I can't figure out, you know? Gosh. And nothing is perfect on it. It's not amazing. It's the first ever bike I rebuilt, so it's not going to be perfect. And that's kind of what makes it special, you know? But I did record every single thing that I spent on this bike when rebuilding it. Like everything from paint stripper, from removing the paint, all the way to buying a brand new crank set for the bike. So as for the cost, my original $25 investment turned out to a $695 investment. Yes, in total, including the price of the bike, I spent $695 making this bike. I could definitely have a newer, a lighter, and a better bike for the amount of money that I spent rebuilding this. But it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about making the cheapest thing possible. It was about learning how bikes work, how to put them together, and making something that is my own. Now, I know how to rebuild a bike from just a bunch of different components and a frame. 2 years ago, I would have thought that was absolutely crazy, but now I can do that. I am just dying of sweat right now. I am soaked. Can you guys see that? Can you see how soaked my shirt is just from sitting here in the shade? I think it's crazy humid. And also, Wisconsin has had, I think, the worst air quality in the entire United States. Because of like the Canadian wildfires. We've been under like a weird smoky haze for like a week straight. Like the sun can't even hit us. It's been like a weird orange glow for like a week straight. And the air quality is terrible. You can actually feel it affect your body. It's kind of crazy. But there you have it, everybody. That is my $25 Craigslist bike that I ended up spending nearly $700 on. Let me know what you think about this. If you like my bike, if you like this video, this is definitely different than the normal content that I put out on this channel, but I just wanted to talk with you guys because I feel like I haven't had a chance just to like talk with you guys unscripted for a long time. And that was honestly a big motivation behind this video. So thank you guys for watching this video. Let me know what you think. I'll see you in my next one.